Hey everybody, just another quick minute here, so just hang tight in the chat room. We'll be getting started at 7 p.m., so we have about 3 more minutes. I appreciate your patience just hanging back. So if you haven't already, please, when it comes to the chat, when you click that chat button there, you're going to see the option to choose all panelists and attendees. That's how we're going to be working with you today. That's how I'll be connecting with you and seeing all of your questions, and we want to make this as interactive as possible. So please feel free to go ahead and write in there. Tell us where you're from. We'll be getting started here at 7 o'clock. So just hang tight. Hey, Joey. I see you there. Thanks for being here tonight. All right, for those of you just joining us, we'll be getting started here at 7. Just please make sure that you're adjusting your chat to all panelists and attendees so we can connect with you, and we'll be getting started here in just a minute or so. So all panelists and attendees there in your chat. Can't wait to hear from all of you soon.
All right, you are live.
All right. All right, everybody. So welcome. My name is Hector Verdugo. I'm the Senior Vice President of Admissions here at Academy of Art University, San Francisco, California, USA. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited for our workshop. I think tonight's going to be a big hit. So before we get started, I just wanted to say a thank you so much to our folks in the Interior Architecture and Design Department for taking the time this evening to put this on. I know tonight's workshop is actually something I'm super interested in. I think that this is going to be a big hit for everybody, but it's really focused around tools to unlock creativity. So anybody here in the chat want to be honest and go ahead and let me know, do you ever feel like you're having any creative blocks? Do you ever feel like you're having a hard time coming up with ideas, working on projects? I think if we're all honest, we're probably going to be in that chat saying, yeah, but that's just the way it is. So believe it or not, this is something that Tom is going to help talk about tonight, is really how to be creative and how to think conceptually that way. So I think tonight's going to be a big hit. So thank you all so much for being honest in the chat room. I think that's a big hit. So for those of you that just joined us here, a couple things I want to get us started with. First thing is this: if you see right down there, that's where the chat button is. Click on that button there. Make sure that you're adjusting to all panelists and attendees. Unfortunately, we're not able to hear all your wonderful voices tonight, but what we will be able to do is talk in the chat. So I'm going to be in the chat tonight to host, facilitate questions, and our wonderful director of our IAD program, Katie, she's going to actually be in the chat as well. I'm going to see if I can get her to write in there really quickly so you can see her, but she'll be able to take questions about our program and respond to you. And the star of the show tonight is going to be Mr. Tom Collom. So what I want to do here before we get started is I want to go ahead and promote next week's event. For those of you, some of you have probably been to events before, but every Tuesday at 7 p.m., we do different workshops. So next week, this is going to be an awesome workshop for those of you interested in drawing, animation, illustration, character design, gamers, any of you out there. I would really urge you to jump on this one. This is a 2D animation fundamental workshop focused on character design. It's going to be hosted by our director, Nicholas Villarreal. So this is going to be a really cool one. anybody out there that's just really excited about checking this out, please do that. So if you guys don't mind to buy me a couple more minutes to let more students get on for tonight, one thing I wanted to ask everybody to do is really quickly, if you can, run and grab a pencil, run and grab a pen, run and grab a piece of paper. It's not mandatory, so please, if you're like dying to get a pen or paper and you don't have it, it's totally okay. But we're gonna have a couple of things we want to interact with you on. So if you're able to do a little bit of writing, a little bit of sketching, put a couple things down, I think it's gonna really help Tom help you today. So just to buy us a couple quick minutes while students are coming in, please try to run and grab a piece of paper, run and grab a pencil, a pen, a crayon, anything you can write with, so that we can try to make this fun and interactive. So while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the star of our show tonight. So I'm going to be here in the chat. I'm going to be the host tonight. I'm going to be answering questions about the university, and I'm going to help wrap everything up. But the workshop here is going to be held by Mr. Tom Collom. He's our capstone coordinator in our interior architecture and design program. He's been with the Academy since 2017. So a little bit about Tom. Tom received a BA in architecture from UC Berkeley. So while still a student, Tom won first place in the National Endowment for Arts sponsored National Cityscape Design Competition for a site-specific sculpture park in St. Paul, Minnesota. Tom's experience spans many design fields, including city and regional planning, architecture, retail, corporate interiors, landscape, and industrial design. Tom teamed up with Esprit de Corp architectural director Bruce Schlesinger to define Esprit's retail image worldwide, including retail stores, showrooms, custom furniture, and store fixtures. That working partnership inspired them to open Bruce and Tom, short as BAT or BAT, in 1993, which is now an award-winning design firm developing retail identities for Hot Topic, Blackheart, Gymboree, Bebe, Discovery Channel, Janie and Jack, Fila, Adidas, Reebok, and others. So more recently, Bruce and Tom have been developing and operating several innovative retail food companies in Soma area in San Francisco. So if you're not familiar with Soma, really cool place in San Francisco to be checking out. So, and then we have some people vouching for Tom here in the chat as an amazing guy. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this off here to the one and only Tom Collom to take it off for our workshop tonight. I'll see you all in the chat, and I look forward to hearing from you guys soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Hector. What an amazing introduction. So happy to be here. And I just want to welcome you all. You're carving out a big chunk of time this evening to be with me and to learn something, hopefully. And like my kids said to me, make sure that you teach them something that's worthwhile, because we get taught so many things that we think are useless. So I am here to teach you things that are necessary, useful, and to help you create success in your life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right now. And get this PowerPoint loaded up. So here we are. So yes, welcome everybody. Just so great to have you all here. I'm super excited. So the title of our talk tonight is Unlocking Your Creativity. It's not just unlocking creativity, it's your creativity. And that's a really important word, because I want you to know that you are all creative. You all have that innate ability. It's a human trait. It's very unique to humans to have this creative ability for problem solving. And you have your own creative solutions to problems based on your life experience, people that you know, people that you'd be designing for. You're going to weave all of that into a solution that not only speaks to you, but also speaks to the users of who you're designing to. So, super excited. And like Hector said, we're going to do some fun stuff. It's not going to be graded. I'm not going to be checking on you. It's really for you to interact a little bit and start to warm up and start to play with some of the tools and techniques around creativity that I think are going to be so important and valuable for your future success in life. So I don't have to go into the detail of my background, but I do want to say one quick story about why I'm here at Academy of Art. So like Hector said, I have had my own design firm for 25 years in San Francisco, and it's been fantastic. But about 3 years ago, I was thinking like, it's time to give back to the next generation of designers. And just like I was in school and had some amazing teachers, there's a lot that they didn't teach me. And I was like, I wish the teachers I had taught me this, that, and the other. And I said, I think I want to teach. And the reason I came to Academy of Art is, and full disclosure, no one's paid me to say this next statement, but it's the honest truth, is I realized the majority of people that we hired for our firm came from Academy of Art University. And the reason was that all of those candidates who came to us came day one, could sit down and start working. They were prepared to do the job. I went to UC Berkeley, fantastic university, but I was not prepared day one for my first job. I had to be taught, I had to be sort of fostered along until I kind of got up to speed. So I thought Academy of Art is doing something really special. They're doing the preparation necessary for you to succeed in the workplace. So I thought I want to be part of a university that is helping and giving them meaningful skills to succeed in the workplace. So I started teaching 3 years ago, and it's been an absolutely fantastic experience. And we have Katie here tonight, who's the director of our Department of Interior Architecture and Design. And she's the one that's responsible for me being here tonight, for me turning my attention to teaching. She gave me so much motivation, and she empowered me to really come to you and start giving you everything I know about design and to help you succeed. So great to have you here, Katie. And she is here tonight. She can answer any questions that you might have about the Interior Architecture and Design Department through the chat. So any questions, just write her a little note and she'll get right back to you. Okay, so I don't want to talk too much. I want to get you guys engaged here very quickly, but there's a few things I want to just kind of frame tonight's session. So this little seminar that we're doing, this webinar rather, is kind of a glimpse into what you might experience in a class, a design studio class in the Interior Architecture Department. And now we've been doing Zoom. Now this is our third semester, and it's actually working really well. We've actually found that the students are more focused, and we can teach design on Zoom. So it's still working. Just like I'm going to teach you tonight some skills that I think are necessary for you to succeed. So let's move right along here. Okay. So this is what we're going to do tonight. It's kind of broken into 4 categories of things I'm going to talk about. Number 1, the power of creativity. Why is creativity so important? It is like a superpower. I know that, you know, when we were kids, we wanted the superpower to be the strongest, the fastest, whatever. But creativity is truly a superpower. And if you can harness it, it has this incredible ability to open up all kinds of doors for you. So I'm going to get into a little more detail later, but that's going to be our first topic tonight. The second topic, and this is where I'm going to need you to participate for those who would like to. You don't have to, but I think you'll enjoy it a lot more if you're engaged in the process of tonight. I call the creative stretch. So just like we warm up before we do exercising, right? We do some stretching, maybe some jumping jacks, things like that. We're going to do something similar, but we're going to kind of get your mind stretched, and we're going to start to do some things that maybe make you look at things a little bit differently. So that's going to be the second thing we're going to talk about tonight. The third thing tonight, we're going to actually apply some of the skills and things I talk about in Creative Stretch to mind mapping. So now we're going to actually be applying some of the principles into solving a design problem. So I'm going to give you all a design problem tonight, and we're going to apply creativity and do a mind map. So it's like a big giant brainstorm. So I'm going to need your help with that. And then the fourth and final thing tonight, it's how we take all those ideas and we converge on a big grand concept, like your big design idea behind what you're going to design, regardless of what it is. Could be a building, could be an interior, could be a car, could be a shoe, could be anything. So that's the goal, is we come up with a design concept that guides and directs the design that we're creating. Alrighty. So now we're going to talk about power of creativity. So don't mind that gentleman on the screen just yet. So creative problem solving works everywhere. So it's a skill. And if you have this skill and you apply it, it works really with anything in your daily life. Obviously, it would work as a career in design. It works everywhere. So it's this amazing tool that you can utilize from this day forward to help you solve those problems that seem unsolvable. So I'm going to teach you some techniques how to do that. It's what the world needs right now, right? We have so many problems confronting us today, and sometimes you feel a little bit helpless, but maybe one of you tonight may be solving a problem that the world needs to make it a better place for everyone. We need those creative minds. We need you. And then opens career doors. So when I got my first job in a design firm in San Francisco, I was rather challenged to come up with an idea for a project. And I got so excited, and I remembered that we studied how to be creative. So I applied the creative principles I'm going to teach you tonight and came up with a design solution that blew away the principals in the design firm. They elevated and promoted me after like the first month. And then I had a whole cadre of architects working for me. So it opens up doors because a lot of people are not all that creative, right? They think, oh, I don't have that creative gene. I don't have a creative bone in my body. I just am good at drawing, or I'm just good at doing specification writing, but I'm not a creative thinker. Well, I want you to be a creative thinker because you have that innate ability, like I mentioned before. It will give you so much opportunity. And then finally, empowering. It is so empowering to feel like you came up with something almost from thin air and people are paying attention, recognizing it, and even building it. That is so amazing. So it has this ability to empower you, to motivate you, and take you to places that you may never have thought you could get to. Okay, so now we're going to talk about intelligence, because there's a lot of people who think that intelligence, like having a high IQ, is necessary to be creative. Well, that's flat out false. Like, oh, I didn't score that high on my SAT score, or I took an IQ test and it wasn't that great. So how can I possibly be creative? It's actually a skill. It's not how high your IQ is or how well you did on an SAT test or any other kind of aptitude test. It's something that can be learned and practiced and mastered. So I have on the screen here a gentleman that you probably all have seen before. And I write the question, who's the smartest person ever? And you're probably thinking, well, it's that guy, right? Albert Einstein, the famous physicist, came up with a theory of relativity, right? Well, guess what? The smartest person is Marilyn Vos Savant with an IQ of 228. So sorry guys, but women are smarter than men. Marilyn is the smartest person that ever lived. But is Marilyn a creative genius? Actually, no, she's a columnist for a magazine called Parade. So she's not solving the world's problems because she has this amazing IQ. She's just very good at taking those kinds of tests. So put that out of your mind. Now let's look at Albert Einstein. So did he have a super high IQ? Well, nowhere near Marilyn's. He had a high IQ, but that's not what's important. What's important is, why is Albert Einstein considered a genius, this brilliant mind? Because he was super creative. And the essence of creativity is how you approach problem solving. So this is really important. I wrote it down here, but we're going to talk about it again. The ability to look at something anew is the cornerstone of creativity and invention. And what that means is you solve problems differently than the majority of other people. You approach problem solving differently. And that's what the focus of tonight's going to be about. Okay, so I said we're going to now do some active participation, if you like. But I encourage you, because I think it would be fun. So the creative stretch, the goal here is we want to get towards what we call a supple mind. It's like, what does that mean, supple mind? That means that you have a mind that's flexible, that can move, that can be shaped, that can bend and morph and all of that. So supple mind is the state that we want to be in before we attack a design problem. So what I do is I first do some breathing exercises. And no, this is not a yoga class, but breathing is really a powerful tool in creativity, I have found. So what I do is if I'm feeling a little bit kind of down, like, oh, I don't have the motivation, I don't have the energy, oh gosh, I don't want to get started, try this. When you breathe and you're feeling down, focus on the inhale. So you could try it now if you want. Sometimes I put my hand on my heart and another hand on my belly and just relax and get in a comfortable place. And if I need more motivation, I focus on the inhale and I just breathe in through my nose or through my mouth as far as I can, and then exhale. And I do that about 10 times. And it really changes you. It does. Breath has this amazing power. Now, if you're the opposite, so you're feeling kind of too hyped up and too anxious and you can't relax. So, same idea. Instead of focusing on the inhale, focus on the exhale. So let everything out. So you breathe in and then exhale. Get all that excess energy, just flush it out of your body. Do that about 10 times and you'll probably become a little more relaxed. So I do that. I do that before I get started. So that's our first kind of stretch. Okay. So the next thing is I want you to consider these three things when we go to the next stage. Change your perspective and perception. Reframe the question. And the more the better. Okay, let me explain. So when I say change your perspective and perception, I'm going to show you a puzzle. It's kind of fun. I'm going to show on the next slide. before you immediately try to go and solve that problem, like we're taught to do, right, in school. It's like, you have 2 minutes, solve that problem. Instead of trying to solve it and come up with an answer right away, I want you to try and approach the problem, the question, from a different point of view, from a different perspective, or from a different perception. Maybe look at it differently. Don't pay attention to the first thing that comes to mind. Look at something else. Okay, so I want you to try that. So this is one of the key morsels of being creative. You have to look at things differently than how you usually look at things. Okay, so that's number one. Reframe the question that may be applicable to this next question or the next one that I give you, or rather a puzzle. And the more the better. That's really going to apply to the mind mapping that we're going to do a little later. Okay, so you guys ready? Did you do your breathing? You're going to pay attention to the approach to the problem rather than going to the solution right off the bat. Okay, so now I say, now let's think like a genius does. All right, here we go. What is the number of the car's parking space? And once you've had a chance to kind of look at this, you can type in your answer in the chat if you like. Maybe some of you have seen this before, so don't spoil it for those who haven't seen this before. But I think this one really teaches a really valuable lesson. So look at the words. Obviously, you're going to look at the car. You're going to look at the numbers. But how can you change your perspective to answer this question? So if you have it, you figured it out, it will be like a flash. You'll be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And those who get it have changed their perspective to the problem. They didn't look at it as a problem that they're going to get graded on. They looked at it differently. So do we have any responses? Okay, I'm looking now. Okay, I got a lot of correct answers. Some 89, some 87s, some 49s, a 5, an 87, a 78. Oh, I saw an ah. Okay, so someone changed their perspective to the problem. Could it be 2? Okay. So for those of you who got it, congratulations. But I'm not grading you, don't worry, don't worry. You all tried, I really appreciate that. Now, when I said change your perspective, now look at the screen. For those of you who didn't get the answer, look at this page that I have up upside down. So turn your head around 180 degrees if you can, and see if you get it now. Okay. Oh my God, what? 87. It's obvious, right? 87. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So this particular puzzle really teaches you about changing your perspective to a problem. And of course, as a designer, you're not solving puzzles, but the moral here is that design, the field of design, is really solving problems. It is like one giant puzzle, right? You're solving problems, whatever, of space, of form, of function, things like that. So this just gives an illustration about how an approach to problem solving in a different way can lead to a solution that you may not have otherwise figured out before. Okay, so lots of great feedback. Thank you, everybody. Great to have you engaged and thinking and participating. Okay, you guys ready for another one? Okay, this is still part of the stretch. We're stretching our minds, all right? So now, those of you who didn't change your perspective necessarily, okay, we're gonna try to change it on this next one, okay? Bring it, all right, I'm bringing it right now. Fasten your seatbelts. Oh my goodness. So simple instruction, cross out 6 letters to form a common word. It looks complicated, but don't think of it that way. Cross out 6 letters to form a common word. Now, just think about reframing that question. Okay, I'm seeing answers coming through. Okay, you guys are smart. See, we got a good warm up and wow, getting a lot of positive answers right now. So if we reframe the question, how might something change if you just cross out the 6 letters to form a common word? So it may change your approach to a problem if you reframe the question, if you try to change your approach, not changing the request of what it's asked of you, but to change your approach. Okay. So it looks like a lot of you got this one. Congratulations. So here's the answer. Can you see that? So we crossed out 6 letters. Instead of just thinking, oh my God, I gotta find a word here and cross out the 6 letters that reveals the word, but really it was so much simpler than that, right? So we just cross out the 6 letters, boom. Create is the word once we've crossed out those 6 letters. So this really kind of teaches you to maybe reframe the problem a little bit. Reframe the approach to the design problem. Okay, I think I got one more for you. Okay, this one's super challenging. All right, you ready? Okay, like what is that? Well, what is that? Did anyone answer it's a circle? Earth, pie. Okay, now you're getting creative. Yeah, earth, pie. Okay, actually, oh, a hole, a hat. Okay, fantastic. Okay, usually in my classes, everyone says, it's a circle, it's a circle, it's nothing more, but you guys are being super creative. Okay. It's actually a birthday cake. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a birthday cake. It's one of the devil's food cakes. So on the inside, it's this devil food chocolatey cake. And then on the outside, it's got this sort of vanilla frosting on it. So you're going to the birthday. You're going to a birthday party. Okay? Now what I want you to do is you are participating at this birthday party. So the host asks you to cut the cake, okay? But they spent so much money on the cake that they cheapened out and got this crappy knife that only works for 3 cuts. So once you do 3 cuts, the knife falls apart and you can't use it anymore. So there's 8 people at this party. So I want you to cut this cake 3 times to make 8 pieces. Three cuts, 8 pieces. Cut it like a pizza, okay? Cut it like a pizza. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen or a crayon, have that next to you and try to make it 8 pieces with 3 cuts. I see that's a hard one. Okay, all right, I see some good answers here. Do an X and then a cross. Okay, very good. Well, there's probably 50 or more ways to do it. But think differently again. Remember, we're going to approach the problem solving, maybe reframe the question. I said, cut the cake 3 times. So when you think of cutting the cake, you're thinking of cutting it like you've always cut a cake before, right? Think differently. How can you solve this? I didn't say the cut had to be straight. I didn't say the cut had to be through the top. I didn't say a lot in that question, right? But you start to make associations with solving the problem based on your experience cutting cakes at birthday parties, right? So what it does is it sets you up to think like everybody else. And that's why it's so important to think differently, to approach it differently, to reframe the question. Focus on the things that I didn't say that wouldn't violate the question. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to bring up my screen. I'm going to just show you a few solutions. I'm going to bring up my whiteboard. Okay, so a lot of you were able to solve the problem in a way that is quite clever. So there's our cake, right? And then I got to get a drawing tool here. So whoops, I don't want a circle. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we cut once, right? We cut twice. That's 2 cuts, that's 4 pieces. Now imagine a horizontal cut right through the middle, right? So we don't usually cut cakes that way, but it solves the problem, right? We have 4 equal pieces. So pretty cool, right? Okay, so now let's just show you another one. Okay, I can cut, one cut is a circle in the middle. I didn't say you couldn't do a circular cut. And then you cut through there and through there. So there we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 8 slices. Again, I didn't say they had to be equal slices. I just said 8 pieces. And you can do all kinds of curvy, wavy cuts, and then waves, cross other waves of cuts, and then you can also solve it that way too. So there's multiple ways to solve this. And you start to have all these creative insights once you reframe the question, once you reframe the approach to this problem, right? We've got to get ourselves away from doing things the way we always do things. And I know it's hard. We get into these habits. We get into these ruts, so to speak. So being creative, you got to jump out of those ruts. So think of all those things that I told you about how to approach and change your perspective to the problem. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so now we've done the creative stretch. Now you guys are warmed up. Now you're thinking creatively. You're thinking differently. Okay, I want to do a little exercise here with you. Actually, it's a design problem. So now we're going to begin to synthesize some of these ideas into how to come up with a solution to a problem. Sometimes what we call a concept, a design concept, a concept that drives the vision, the approach to the project. So there's this technique called mind mapping. Maybe some of you have heard of it, maybe some of you haven't. It's also a form of brainstorming. I'm sure you've all heard of brainstorming. It's just like putting out as many ideas as quickly as possible that you make or associate next to the design problem. So the goal here is we're going to come up with all these ideas based on the design problem I give you, and then we're going to focus and hone in to maybe some ideas around a concept. So this has not been rehearsed. I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. So maybe I could get Hector to help me with the chat, monitoring the chat. So when you guys give me words, I'm going to write them down on my whiteboard. Okay, so this is what's called mind mapping, this brainstorm. Okay, before we do that, I'm going to give you the design problem right now. Okay, like Hector mentioned, when I was in school, I did a design competition and I won first place. And I won $10,000, and it was pretty amazing. I was in school and I was beating out these other architects and designers in this competition because I was applying what I'm teaching you today to solving the design problem. So I want to see how close you get to what I came up with for this particular design. Okay, so what it was, the problem was, we're going to design a park. So you're like, I'm interested in interior architecture, not parks. Well, I'm showing you how the design process and creative thinking, you can solve anything. You could design a park. You could design a building. You could design the interior of a building. You could design a shoe. You could design anything because you know the principles of the creative thought process. Okay, so you're going to design a park. It's in St. Paul, Minnesota. So it's quite cold, northern state, and it is on the two main boulevards coming into the city. So people are commuting into the city and they're going to go by this park. And they're also leaving the city the same way. And this park can be anything, right? I didn't say what it had to be, what it can be, what it can't be. And the park is kind of shaped sort of like a pizza slice. May be important, may not be important. So the idea is to create a world-class park in this location in St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay, so think about that for a minute. I'm going to go back to my whiteboard. I'm going to clear all my drawings, get my text tool up, and I'm going to start writing down words that come to mind. And there's no right and wrong here. This is just associations that you have based on the design problem that I've given to you. Okay, so what did I say? It's a park, right? So what comes to mind when I talk about park?
Trees.
Trees, okay.
Grass.
Okay, I gotta get my, oh, there we go, trees, grass.
You have flowers, benches, kids, snow, fountains, playground, tables. Chat moves fast here. Green. Kids.
Gotta get my glasses on.
Good. Benches, flowers.
Okay, good. This is a good start. Okay.
I have someone wrote Egyptian pyramid greenhouse.
Okay. I'll just say pyramid. We know what you're talking about. Okay. So what you gave to me, which is great. You made associations to parks that you have experienced in your life. We think of parks having trees, having grass, flowers, kids there playing on the playground, people sitting on park benches and things like that. Okay, now I want you to think a little differently. So what are other things that I talked about in the design problem to you that you really didn't address relative to this? So any words come to mind?
We have signs, shape, crosswalk, noise, entrance, exit, parking, commute, traffic, gates, weather, man-made stuff, trash, cars, welcome center, vehicle, cars going by on both sides, stop sign, budget, sculptures, pizza shape, climate, northern state, honoring figures.
Okay, excellent. You guys are doing great. Okay, so now I want you to think, change your perspective a little bit. So I told you people are going to be coming or going by this park. How? Think differently. Think, change your perspective, not your own personal perspective, but those who may be seeing this park. Does that change anything in your response? So remember I said it's on two sides of this park are on major thoroughfares for commuters coming into the city, right? So imagine you need to put yourself in the shoes, not in the shoes, in the car of someone going by this park. Change your perspective. Are flowers going to be something important? Maybe. Is grass going to be something important? Yeah, maybe wishing I could go to that park. But how could you make the park exciting for those driving by it? Right? You got to think about your users here. You got to think about who's going to experience this park. Yes, of course, there'll be people going and maybe walking through the park or whatever, taking their kids to the park. But think about most people are going to see this from the seat of their cars coming to work. What do you think about then? What would you want? What would you want this park to do to maybe brighten up your day? You're coming in, maybe you're a little grumpy. Oh gosh, it's only Wednesday and I got another big work day ahead. What would make you happy coming into this park? Uplift you? Any thoughts there?
We have a lot of things. We have coffee, positive affirmations, billboards, fountains, big screens, cafe in the park, murals, outdoor movies, waterfalls, music, refreshments, map, sounds, graffiti walls, car wash, splash pad, mediation space, outdoor theater, live concert, color, food stations, statues,
Okay, good.
vertical gardens, prism reflections, vendors.
But can you experience, so what's making these things so special in the car? What's making these things particularly attractive for your, or relevant to your experience in the car?
Visually appealing as you drive by.
Yeah, okay, visually appealing.
They move. Immersiveness, excitement.
Now you're thinking. We want to get people excited to drive by this park, right? This is not just for users walking their kids to the park, to the playground. This is predominantly a park for the experience of those driving by it. That was the key to this design problem. So we have to get away from what we traditionally think of as a park and expand our approach to how we might solve or design this park. So there's another thing I'm going to ask you. So I told you a little bit about location, right? That's also an important thing to consider in designing this park. How do we make this park speak to this northern state up north? How do we make this relate and connect so people who drive by this park not only get this amazing experience, but also feel connected to it in some meaningful way?
They wrote,
So you want to think?
They wrote, what season is it?
Sorry?
Someone wrote, what season is it?
Oh, what season? Any season. Any season. It's going to be a park year round, right? So we know it's cold, right? Cold in the winter, probably hot in the summer, and probably nice in spring and fall. Are there any unique characteristics about living in a more northern part of the world? Something that's special. I know this is hard, but it gets us to a concept that not only speaks to the location, specific location, but it speaks to the region. It speaks to the people.
I've gotten like water fixtures that can freeze, the cold,
Yep.
evergreens, ice skating rink, greenhouse, indoor fixtures, view of the mountains, walking trail, local plants, snow, ice on the road, ponds, ice baby from a young man, John Beeson out there.
Okay. Yeah, but we could have greenhouses anywhere, right? Local plants. Yeah, that could connect you to the region. Maybe there are local plants indigenous to that area. Ice, yes, in the winter, but how about in the summer? Ponds, yeah, maybe the ponds freeze and have a different look than the, but remember, it's about experience. Okay, so now I'm gonna reframe the question and I'm gonna ask you a couple more. Okay, so when you're driving in a car, maybe it's a long drive, and is there anything that is visually exciting when you're driving in your car? When you look out the window, you look out and you see something that's like, oh, that's so cool. I love that. I love how that looks. And it's unique to being in a car.
We have fireworks, landmarks, statues, murals, watching the sunset, agenda billboard, bridges, light up bridge, art sculpture, windmill, cathedrals, energy drinks, destination, light displays, skyline, dancing people, lookout parking spot, mini caves, groups of people for events, different national monuments like the Grand Canyon.
Okay, yeah, those are all really interesting. Yeah, a sunset, yeah, we can see a sunset in a car, we can see it walking down the street, going to the beach, whatever. Yeah, sunsets are amazing, right? But is it uniquely different in a car? Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so this is essentially what we call mind mapping. We take the problem that's given and we jot down words as we continually reframe the question that was asked of us, trying to look at a problem from different perspectives, like we had to turn our heads upside down and solve the problem upside down, right? Changing your approach, looking at it from different points of view, from the point of view of those walking by it, driving by it, maybe even flying over it. So we don't want to limit ourselves. We want to look at a concept that works for everybody, right? It's inclusive. Super important. So we could keep going on and on, but the idea of the mind map is to get out all your ideas. And this could be drawings, like that image that I shared before has drawings. It's a very creative, expressive thing. So images that come to mind, you can sketch it out. Words. And then you begin to look for patterns. You begin to look for patterns in what you've written here. So in technical terms, this is called divergent thinking. I know it sounds very heady and technical, but divergent means spreading out, right? To diverge from a center point, right? We've got a problem and we just throw out ideas. It's a brainstorm. Divergent thinking. So once we've just exhausted our possibilities here, then we go to what we call convergent. So we converge on some ideas, right? Based on what we put here that we find particularly interesting. So I'm going to help you a little bit here, but I'm going to draw some circles around some words that I think are particularly powerful in this exercise. So I'm going to circle some that I think are important. So let's circle. The first one I think is the first batch, I think was a little bit sort of too much like what we think of as a traditional park. So we're going to move away from that because I don't think those in an automobile are really going to benefit all that much from seeing a playground with kids in it. Okay, so I'm going to look at the next batch here. So sculpture, I thought was a particularly good word. Like, wouldn't it be cool to see some kind of sculpture and maybe it changes as I move by it? I don't know, I'm kind of intrigued with that word. Any others here? Shape, yeah, shape is an interesting word. We could do some interesting shapes, maybe with this sculpture or something like that. That could be kind of cool as I drive by it. Okay, the next batch, coffee, billboards. Well, I can't stop traffic and get coffee. Maybe we can watch people drink coffee, but I think we need to do something that could be kind of cool. as if you're driving by. Maybe I roll down the window and hear something. So maybe it could be music. I like that. We like to engage the senses. Sounds. That could be kind of cool. So maybe I'm hearing something as I'm going by. We can't really distract ourselves from looking at things too long while driving, right? Reflections, I kind of like that. Kind of get some sparkle or something going on. Visually appealing, of course. This is key. Visually appealing, something that actually is really interesting to look at as I'm driving quickly by this thing, and excitement. So you guys are really starting to get on fire here. I thought this was a particularly good batch, good morsels of ideas coming up here. And then the next one, season, greenhouse, local plants, ice, pond. This was trying to be unique to St. Paul, Minnesota. Yeah, it has seasons. Maybe we can talk about seasons. Maybe it could change for the seasons, possibly. Okay, landmarks. That was interesting. Can we create some kind of landmark that identifies this with the region? I think that's good. Statues. Yeah, maybe that speaks to sculpture. Statues is kind of interesting. There's art sculpture again. Skyline. That's kind of cool. Kind of see that as you're driving by, how it changes and shifts and things like that. And people is always nice to see, right? Okay, so this is what we do. Mind map, get the ideas out, and then we begin to look for words that we think are particularly speaking to the big picture of what we're trying to design. And this process, what I'm doing with the circles, is called convergent thinking. So we begin to make patterns, find patterns. So maybe sculpture relates maybe to the music and the sound. So I'll draw connecting lines. So if we're talking about a sculpture, maybe it's making music or making some kind of sound. Maybe it's also creating a nice reflection. Or visually appealing, could be both of these. Excitement, I like that one. We want something exciting, right? So you begin to make these connections with words, and then you begin to then take those words and see if you can't coalesce around another idea. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to show you that mind map again. Whoops. Gotta go back. Okay, so there's an example of a mind map that's more visual. And some like to do drawings and sketches and words and colors. It can be totally that. If that's the way you like to express yourself, get ideas out, you can totally do something like that. There's really no one way to do a mind map. It's up to you. You're creative. What works for you works for me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we came up with, arriving at that concept. We call it flash of brilliance. So this idea of everything coming together into a grand idea that speaks to everything. It speaks to who's going to use it, why it's there. It relates to where it is, and how it all works, how it all comes together.
Hey, Tom, sorry to interrupt you, but if you're not sharing your screen right now, just FYI.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Let me go back. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, here we go. I have to start from current slide. Okay, there we go. Flash of brilliance. So this is now coming up with that grand idea, this grand vision for this project. And of course, we had very limited time here, but I wanted you to play a little bit. I thought you did really well. I think it worked a lot better than I expected. So let me tell you what we came up with and see how it may change how your perception initially of the problem actually turned into something kind of cool. So we did, as a team, focus on the users in the automobile. But not only, but that was the majority of people experiencing this park from the car. So we talked about that. We talked about what's some cool experiences that we've had in a car. And several of us said, I love when I'm in the car and I look out the window and I'm looking at a field of plants like corn or trees planted in rows. And as you look by, as you're driving, they kind of all change and shift and make these cool patterns, and they sort of shimmer, and it's really cool. And as you turn your head one way, the pattern changes. As you turn another way, the pattern changes yet again. And we thought that would be so cool if we had some effect like that. So we kept that in the back of our minds. We wanted something visually appealing, exciting, kind of like the words that some of you came up with. Something that's enticing, that makes you want to drive by. Can't wait to do it again. Then we talked about region. And someone said, oh, I was just in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I saw the most wonderful thing. It was the northern lights that you see in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. But as the further north you go, you begin to see the aurora borealis. So all those shimmering colors beautifully displayed in the lights. And if you haven't seen it, just type it in, northern lights or aurora borealis, and you'll see these beautiful wave-like forms of light. And we said, that would be cool if we could somehow bring that into this park experience, because people are familiar with that phenomenon here. And it's not everywhere that you see that. And it is somewhat unique to this region of the world. And we liked the idea that maybe this could also evoke some kind of sound or music. So we kept that in the back of our minds. And so what we decided was, what if we created the illusion of the northern lights with a series of poles, like a pattern of poles, like trees in a field or corn in a field, and have them different colors. So as you drive by, the patterns and the colors shift and move across one another, and the perspective changes as you drive by it. We thought that would be so cool. This would be truly an experience, either coming into the city or leaving the city. And it's kind of a landmark. It would become a landmark. People would come to St. Paul and have to check this park out, because it's not like any ordinary park. It's actually like a sculpture. It's a site-specific sculpture. And we cut holes in the pipes, kind of like organ pipes, because we started to think, what other things make music with pipes? We said organ pipes. So we experimented. We cut slots in the pipe. So when cars would go by, it creates wind, and then the pipes would whistle or make a tone, things like that. So that would be another experience that you could get by driving by this park. And then we thought about the users at the park, people who are going to actually visit it and walk through it to see all these wonderful colored poles. So we attached, or planned to attach, mallets to each pole. So we could get a group of us to hit the poles at different intervals and make different sort of chiming sounds. So there was an interactivity part. And then we had all these stair steps between the poles. So you could create seating areas. You could have little sand pits for the kids. We even created a clearing in the middle of the poles, like a clearing in the forest. and we could have a little stage and people could play music there. So we could actually utilize this park. We call this park Northern Lights. And the jury was so excited by the idea that, yeah, we got the first prize. Unfortunately, they never built it, which is kind of a shame because we thought it was such a great idea. Someone was newly elected the mayor after we won and said he didn't like it because it didn't look like a park he was used to. He wanted trees and flowers and benches and a playground and all the things typically associated with a park. But he didn't understand that this was not the traditional park in a traditional location in a quiet, part of the city. It was actually a very busy, active part of the city. So unfortunately, it didn't get built. But I just wanted to illustrate that kind of in closing about how approaching the problem solving through these steps actually can lead to some very creative solutions that you may have never thought of before. Okay, we're almost done here. I just wanted to leave you with a final thought. So this is a very famous quote by Henry Ford. So if you don't know who Henry Ford is, you probably know him, but he's kind of the gentleman who figured out how to mass produce automobiles, hence the Ford brand. And he's a controversial figure, I'll give you that. But he was also creative in the way he approached business. And he always wanted to do things differently. So I love this quote, and maybe you can memorize it. So when you're approaching design problems, think how Henry Ford states right here. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Amazing, right? We cannot go through life doing things the same way over and over again. We'll never get to a new place. We'd still be in the cave, right? Trying to figure out why the square wheel's not working out so well, right? We need this flash of brilliance. We need creative thought. We, as humans, all have it. We all have it. You all have this creative power within you. You need to unlock it. You need to bring it out. Bring it out into the open and share it with the world. Because we need you. We need you to help us make the world a better place. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. I really enjoyed it. And this is kind of like the tip of the iceberg, or maybe a chunk of the iceberg. Let's say the chunk of the iceberg about a design tool that we can use to create powerful, relevant, and amazing designs, right? But there's other tools. There's other tools that you could layer onto this that go even further. Like I would love to give a talk on environmental psychology. It's how you as a designer can influence people's behaviors. How you as a designer can influence people's behavior to make people come into a space and change their mood. Design things that help people heal faster in, say, a hospital. It's proven there are techniques in design that help people heal faster. They've done studies on this. Help children stay more focused in school. That's what you do as a designer. You can do that. You can make the world a better place. You can have meaningful impact in people's lives through design. You can make a difference. It's a fantastic field. The other amazing thing about design is it's not a dead end. You actually will never get replaced by a robot, because robots can't think creatively. Only you can. And if you have the power of creativity in your belt, in your toolkit, apply it in whatever you do, and you will make a difference. It's really great. Design has been very good to me, and I want you all to have that experience that I had, being able to change people's lives in meaningful and important ways. And finally, maybe most important, is with design, it never gets boring. You actually improve as you get older. So many of the most amazing designers today are in their 80s and their 90s. Think about that. Think about what you have to look forward to. So anyway, I'm so happy that you're all here. I'm excited that you have this ember burning within you to maybe think about jumping into the field of design. It is one of the most exciting, fun, challenging, but yet gratifying fields I can think of. And I get more excited every day the more I get into it, the more I learn, and the more I'm able to now share with you my experience and what I think is important for you all to succeed. So thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Hector.
Thank you so much. And yeah, this was really exciting just to talk conceptually about, being creative, and also, walking through this idea for the park. I was actually picturing like using lighting and using like, because when you said in your car, what are some of the things you see? And I was thinking about really just like all the signs that you see. I feel like that's very specific to being in a car, is your exits. And I think, especially for me, I don't know where I was going with this, but I really thought the one thing I want to see more than anything is the exit that I'm trying to get off on. So how can we bring that to life, right?
Of course. And again, there's no right answer, right?
Yeah.
And you're bringing your own personal experience to the problem. And that's what makes you unique and yourself. So Academy of Art, we want you to be expressing yourself. We want you to showcase all your amazing creativity. We don't want to tell you what to do. We want to give you the tools to create what you think is the best solution. So Hector, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of fun. I got to tell you, I did get the 87 right.
Oh, okay.
I felt pretty good about that. I'll be very honest. I was like, am I supposed to do this differently? I was like, I think I got this one pretty quick. So I felt good. Old dog, new tricks,
Okay.
But hey, so what I did want to do is take up some of the time, maybe to put you on the spot. Maybe even Katie, if you're free to talk for a few minutes. One thing is, I know that we have an amazing program here. I know students came on to talk a little bit about how to be creative and really get the most of it. So I also wanted to see if maybe we could take a minute to just talk a little bit about the career. So if we're trying to say get into a career that's focused in this major, right? So one thing I would notice is I'm sure there's a lot of students on here that are seniors right now. They're in high school trying to figure it out. There's probably some students out there that are thinking about getting a graduate degree. I know there's even students in the chat right now that are currently students. So it's cool to have this big melting pot. But one thing I try to ask faculty is, when you were basically trying to make that decision, right? So we have to go back to these days where you were at this contest. What pushed you to get into this field? And how did you actually get the confidence in yourself to say, this is a field I'm going to find a career in? This isn't just, for lack of a better term, kind of a pipe dream of I'm going to be a designer, I'm going to get paid to be a designer. I mean, what helped you to be motivated enough to say, I'm going to stick with this. This is something I can see myself doing long-term, and it is a real viable career for me?
That's an incredibly great question. And I have to say that when I was in high school, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I had a lot of interests. I loved cooking and I loved building things. I liked to draw, but I would draw comics and things like that. But I had no one in my sphere, meaning family, friends, relatives, that were architects or designers. So I had no influence really, other than maybe what I gathered from, reading a book or visiting a museum and saying, "Oh, that museum's kind of cool. Who did that?" But I have to say, I was when I went to college, I was exploring. I was really just taking lots of different classes to see if something kind of resonated with me. Oh, let me back up. I did love art classes when I was in high school. Art was something that seemed to come naturally to me. I finally figured out I was a visual learner. Like I had a hard time, reading long books and then synthesizing that into some written text. I got better as I got older, but really as it was a real challenge. So I was very visual. So anything that tapped into my visual skill was really interesting. I think that's why art spoke to me. So then when I was in college, I took a class that was taught by an architect. It was to design a solar home. And I'm like, that sounds kind of cool. So I took that class and it was like flashes of like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what I want to do. I know it. I knew at that moment that I'm now bringing all those things that I'm good at, these visual attributes, into something that can actually be applied and built. And it was a pretty powerful moment. And I never strayed from that moment. So when I was at school, to address your other question about, students who may have an unrelated degree and then maybe wanting to get into design and get into the master's program. So I had many people that I met throughout my university life that came in, they may have had an economics undergrad degree or they had a history degree, but they were taking the master's track to become designers or architects. And that is a very viable track to take because you have this basis of knowledge that then you can apply to design. And it gives you actually a leg up on a lot of others. And what we do is in the master's program, we give you the skills that you need to catch up with those that might have an undergrad degree in design. So you do those skill building classes to learn how to draw, learn how to sketch, learn how to do construction drawings and all of those things, learn about codes and the design process, and still be able to succeed. So I've had many students that started a little bit rusty in the master's program, but they quickly accelerated. And some of my best students graduated as, I would say, superstars, getting a job, and they had a degree, undergrad degree in history. So you can succeed. You can make a turn and succeed. So it can happen, no doubt.
And students, while we have some time here in the chat, are there any questions that you may have for our faculty here? Any questions about the program? Any questions about the university? Anything we can do to basically just start some dialogue with you guys here? So just looking for any questions in the chat here, we can hand over to Tom or to Katie.
Hi, Hector. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Katie. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to answer your question, Hector. So, my whole life I was interested in interior design and I almost kept it secret. I didn't think that it was a viable career. I don't, for whatever reason. And so I went to college, I got a degree in art history, and I loved learning about design and art. But like most people, I was really interested in just supporting myself and having a career. And so I started exploring schools and I actually found the Academy of Art. And after looking at their program, I realized with my natural creativity, which Tom just did such a great job inspiring, plus the Academy's program, which was just, I saw that it taught me the tools I need. And I thought, why not? If they can give me all the tools, I can do the rest. So I found a really good home. I graduated from this program. I had a great experience. And I think a big part of that was working with professionals. All of our instructors are currently working design professionals. So it was scary, but it also was a very welcoming experience. And just seeing how organized the program was to equip me with all the tools I need. Like Tom said at the very beginning, as an Academy graduate, you come out with a skill set to start working right away. So I would say it was more of a motivation than a confidence, and just taking that first step of reaching out to the Academy and engaging with them. And once I had my first class and did my first assignment, I thought, okay, I can do this. So it was a great experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And there's quite a few questions in the chat now. I don't know if you guys want to maybe look through a few of these, or I'll be more than happy to read some off. Let me get started here with a couple of these questions, because I know that we get so much done when we can answer some of those questions they have here. So, so for those of us that work full-time, and I would just tell you, if you're working part-time or full-time, this is really going to be a good question. So what kind of time commitment do we need if we want to continue working? For one class, how much time is dedicated every week?
I would say, to be fair, 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours a week for a class. That includes class time and your homework time. There's a lot of work time spent doing your assignment. So I would say 10 hours for a class. Tom, would you agree?
Yeah, Katie, I think that's about right. And we don't just say that, you know, as punishment, like, oh my God, we're gonna you need to lock yourself in a room. Sometimes it's gonna go a little faster, sometimes it might go a little longer. It really has to do with how much you apply yourself. So I see students that really, you know, go the extra mile, and they actually accelerate a lot more quickly. And I kind of give an example in my early classes. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? So I can't, if I'm your trainer, I can't lift the weights for you. You need to do that work. You have to make the effort to do the hard work, right? To do the assignments, to do the things that sometimes are a little uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable, but you persevere and you push, and then you see growth. And to me, that's the huge motivator. Once you start to see results, you tend to put in more time. So I think that's just an analogy that most people understand. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it.
Totally agree, Tom. But I will also add, you know, we understand that you have lives, you have jobs, you have kids, you have families. And so one of the beautiful parts of our program is it's very flexible. You can take one class a semester, or you could take as many as you can handle a semester. So it's really designed to suit you and your needs, for sure. And I saw another question, I think from Harry: as a beginner in this field, to get any kind of experience, where and how do I get started? Tom?
So if you don't have any experience in the field, usually most design firms will require at least some experience in that you're enrolled in a program. So oftentimes design studios will offer an internship. So we support, through an internship development, that we can help get you placed with a design company to start learning how a design firm works. So it's kind of in parallel. You want to be on the track showing your interest and dedication to the field, in order for a design firm to really say, we want to bring you on and help you. So it's rare that you would just be able to get a job in a design firm without any kind of background experience. That's in my
I agree, but I would also add that relationships and connections help, and that's another beautiful part of our institution, the Academy of Art University, is you're surrounded by working professionals in your instructors and also in your fellow students. So just making those personal connections, I think, is great, and attending any kind of event such as this one tonight. You never know who you're going to meet and where that might lead. So I know it's hard because I was there when, you know, you're looking for jobs and every job description says must have 5 years experience. And I'm thinking, I just graduated. How can I get experience without experience, you know? And you just it came down to me meeting a designer at an event that I went to, and we hit it off, and I started working with her, made a connection. That one led to another one. So I think you can't say enough for networking, making connections with other people in your industry as well.
Yeah, all good points. And I just would emphasize this to any student, you know, when you're looking at time in class and you're looking at all of that, what I would really put your focus on is the quality of your work. So the beauty of these types of industries is you get to show your portfolio. So if you're a perfectionist, if you're someone that really cares about your work, if you want to show off how good you are at something, what's really cool about these industries is you have what you call a portfolio, and you can let all of that hard work, all that extra mile, all those long nights, it all speaks for itself as you're showing what you're capable of in the industry. So that's why I always tell students, work on your portfolio to the best of your ability. Don't worry so much about getting an A. Look at it more of saying, is this the best I could do on this project? Because you get a chance to walk around with that project and show it off in your portfolio for as long as you want to. So I think having that type of a mindset can help push you to say, I'm looking to do the best I can do rather than just get a project done so I can turn it in, if that makes sense. Another question I want to see if I can hand to you guys was in regards to CETA. Somebody's asking, said, does this program lead us to CETA certifications? So maybe if we could talk a little bit about what CETA is, what's an NCIDQ, why is that stuff important?
Sure, absolutely. So CETA, there's two different topics here. CETA, CIDA, is the Council for Interior Design Accreditation, and they accreditate, excuse me, they accredit educational institutions in the field of interior architecture and design. So what that means is that our BFA and our MFA programs, which are both CETA accredited, are meeting the highest standards within the interior design education field. What I think you might be referring to is NCIDQ, which is the national in the United States certification for interior designers. So we do not provide that certification. That only comes through the NCIDQ organization. However, our program does equip you with the knowledge and the skill set to be able to successfully pass that exam. I highly recommend you study on your own. There's various different paths to take to achieving your NCIDQ status. It usually involves some combination of schooling and work experience, but it kind of depends on you. I will say this, though, not every state in the United States requires designers to be NCIDQ certified. So some states you are required in order to act as an interior designer, work as an interior designer in your location. Other states like California, where we are, it's not required. That being said, it's always something to aspire to. It's the highest certification you can get as a designer. And just to go back to your question, Michelle, a little bit further back, you mentioned the term interior architect. This is a hot button issue in our industry. So, there are people on both sides of this debate. People who consider us interior architects because we are doing interior architecture, including moving walls, plumbing, finishes, electrical work, fire and life safety. We obviously have to have an understanding of building codes. And then there are others who don't feel that term is quite accurate. So really the term that I think is most agreed upon is interior designer. But we do interior architecture, which is why it's in our title. Tom, do you want to add anything to that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Katie. So one thing just to keep in mind that you don't need to be certified to work in the field. So typically out of school, once you get your degree, that you're working full-time in the profession, you do not need to have a certification. Part of that process of certification is you need to have work experience in the field that you're within. So it may require, I don't remember the exact number of hours, but a certain number of hours to qualify to begin the examination process to become certified. So I don't want you to walk away and say, oh my goodness, I can't even do this until I'm certified. No, that's, you might, like Katie said, aspire to get that, but you don't need it to actually practice your craft. You will have senior principals that may be the ones signing the drawings, certifying them, and so forth, and you are just working for them. So I just want to make that clarification.
Absolutely, I agree, Tom. And I think that the most important 2 items you need to get a job are a great portfolio and your great attitude. And so if you have those 2 things that we can help you achieve at the school, you should have no trouble finding a job.
I also see some people talking a little bit about, I see Jamar here talking about what it's like to be an online student. So someone said, hey, should I go to school now or wait until COVID is over? So my answer to that would just be, every single student is different. What my team does is we work with students before they actually enroll. So we sit down and have a one-on-one to talk more about their interests, show them how online works, how on-site works. I would tell you, any student right now, if you're at home and you're just kind of stuck in shelter in place, I would tell you to get started in school as soon as you can. Semesters can be quite a while. So even if you can just take some courses to get occupied and begin working on it, if you're intending to be on site in the future, students always have that autonomy to change from being online to back to on site or vice versa. So I would tell anybody, especially just your beginning courses, they're not going to necessarily make or break your portfolio. But I think getting started on the right track, starting to be dedicated to these types of programs, I would say go for it. That would be my guess. And yeah, see, Jamar says you got this. He's a student and a motivational speaker on the side.
He is. I completely agree, Hector. And I also just want to add, because someone asked a question earlier, what's better after COVID, online or on site? And the answer is, I don't know what's better, but what I can tell you is that our online program very closely, if not exactly, mirrors our on-site program. So even though we are all stuck at home and having to learn online, we are still able to deliver the same curriculum and content that we would if you were on site. And now with, Zoom and all of the tools we have available to us, it's been a very smooth transition for our current students who were on site and had to go to online. And so that's a great other feature of our program, is that our online program mirrors our on-site program. So you won't really necessarily be missing out, except to see Tom's smiling face in person, perhaps.
And your smiling face. But we've been doing Zoom classes, and we also do the asynchronous online classes where you can take it anytime you want. The Zoom classes actually meet at their scheduled times as if they were in the classroom. And yeah, I think going back to what we talked about tonight, this idea of the supple mind, remember that? Maybe you forgot about it, but the idea that we kind of are more fluid in our approach to whatever life, I think practicing that is really important. And of course, we are being hit with all of these different, crises and obstacles, and you know them all as well as I do. But our department is growing, and I think a lot of that has to do with this attitude that I can persevere, I can move through this and still succeed. And I say, it's just imagine yourself, as this river flowing through, and a rock gets in your way, but you just move around it. A tree crashes and blocks the water, but you float over it. And this idea of a supple mind, I think, can benefit you in so many ways. And it can allow you to succeed not in this period, but in a future period that may cause even more hardship and obstacles. So I think you're particularly well suited to succeed if you start right away. So I just want to put that out there.
Agreed. Thank you, Tom. And I just want to answer Brian's question. He said he worked his way up in the hotel industry over the past 20 years. He started the MFA program last semester and he's loving it. Great to hear, Brian. And he says, now would be a great time for me to get away from the hotel industry and get a role in design, but I'm not sure what role I should be looking at or if I would even be considered for any design roles since I'm still so early on in my MFA. Any suggestions? So I would say it's never a bad idea to reach out to a firm, even if you don't think you're qualified for a certain role. They might meet you and love you and make a role for you. So yes, it is early in your design education, but that doesn't mean you cannot apply for internships. So my advice is put yourself out there, even if it's, which was my first job, organizing a sample library in a design office in which I was just organizing, fabric swatches, but being around the designers, absorbing what they were doing, and then making those connections with the professionals in the industry was huge for me. That led to the next job and led to the next job. So while it is true that most firms are looking for people with actual more design experience, that doesn't mean they can't utilize you or that you can't learn something from an internship. So I would apply for the jobs that look exciting to you. I would also, to answer another question of where to find internships and jobs, is to follow the Academy of Art job board. I think LinkedIn is a great place. That's one of the really active locations where firms are posting job openings. And I think that my advice would be to find firms that inspire you, that you are interested in, and start following them, start engaging with them. So even if it doesn't end up in a job right now, you could begin a relationship that could result in a job down the line. Are there any other questions that we've missed?
So there's a couple things too I can just address in general. I think that would help a few things. Someone had a question on grad degrees. Just so you know, as a rule of thumb, our Masters of Fine Arts programs, MFA degrees, those are going to be 63 semester units to complete. MA degrees here are 36 units. We have representatives, and just part of the process I want to make sure that I'm very clear on for everybody. So it doesn't matter if you're worried about financial aid, if you need help with just figuring out your major, is this the specific career path that makes sense for me? The first step in the process is we have everybody work with an admissions representative. And what they want to do is talk to you more about you, what your goals are, the things that you're interested in, what we can do to try to help give you advice on, so that we can ensure that the major you're applying for, the program, whether it's an MA, whether it's an MFA, whether it's a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, we just want to make sure that we understand what your goals are and kind of help you to pick that apart so we can figure out how to advise you on which track makes the most sense for you. part of the admissions process as well is that we have everybody work with a financial aid planner, and that person will help you whether you're an undergraduate student or you're a graduate student to figure out a financial plan that works for you or your family before you actually enroll as a student. So one of the things that I want to do here is just kind of make it really simple for everybody. Make sure anybody that's interested in looking at this school, whether you're in high school right now, if you're out of school, if you're looking for an undergraduate degree, if you're looking for a graduate degree, just start off with sending me an email. What I can do is to just start like a conversation with you, and also just figure out when we could set up a time just to talk. If anybody out there has portfolio work, if you've done anything before and you want to get some tips, our team here is more than happy. They do it all the time. What they do is they actually will help look at portfolio work, not for admissions to get into the school, but to see if you should be waiving out of certain courses. Sometimes it's just to give you recommendations and where you should maybe be aiming in your career path. But if you're really worried about getting career advice, I would tell you that just in my experience, I've been doing this for a long time, the specific career tends to find you. As long as you're in the right ballpark, you start to get exposed to different areas of that field. And you tend to see that students start to gravitate towards the things that they really enjoy or the things that they're really good at as they become more and more exposed to the opportunities in that field. I see it all the time. And as a quick example, I see students constantly that will come in the film program, right? And they say, I want to be a director because that's what they all know. And then they leave being an editing person or a lighting person or cinematographer or things of that nature. So you just don't know what you don't know yet. And the more you get exposed to it, you tend to start finding your niche in that field. So I actually have a cousin that's an interior designer, and it's just funny because I always pull from her, but somebody that went to school thinking that she wanted to work in the residential sector and then ended up graduating, working for Animal Planet and doing set design. And now she works for Forever 21. But she didn't even know what she was good at. She just knew that she liked this. And then her career took off as she worked hard and then opened up door after door by just meeting people, working on that portfolio. So I would just tell you all from a personal experience, just start off with just sending an email to myself. I'm also going to drop the link in of how to apply to the university. So if you want to apply to the university, whether you're a graduate, undergraduate, or even a student in high school, feel free to do so. If you'd rather start off with a conversation and you'd rather start off with just talking a little bit about your interests, I'd love to connect with you, answer all your questions, make sure that if financial aid is something that you're concerned about, we can try to cross that bridge for you as well. So please, any questions are good questions. So please don't feel shy to send them over my way. So I'll pass it back to you, Tom, and to you, Katie, if there's any other things you wanted to address in the chat from here on.
I think I'm good. There's some questions that I'm not able to answer. I saw one about a degree, studying abroad. So I don't know if I'm the best person to respond to that question, but maybe the best thing is to reach out to Hector or one of the advisors to get a little more detail on the programs that are available to study abroad.
As it pertains to study abroad, 100%. We generally will have study abroad, but just due to COVID right now, everything is on hold until it's safe to do so. But normally we would have study abroad options for students, but obviously with COVID right now, we have to play everything safe. So that's not an option until it's deemed to be safe to do so. I'm sure that's nothing unique to our school, to any school right now. So,
right.
I just want to say thank you to Tom for unlocking my creativity tonight. It was very exciting and challenging, and I'm ready to address my next issue, looking at things differently. So thank you, Tom.
Well, thanks, Katie. Thanks for being here. And thanks to you for getting me into my new career of teaching. So I have a lot I owe to you and a huge debt of gratitude. So thank you.
The pleasure is all ours, Tom. We're so lucky to have you. And a lot of your students, AKA your fan club, were here tonight, and they were loving it. So thank you.
Well,
we're the lucky ones.
Okay, thank you. I think we just have a great department, just great energy. We're growing, and I'm just so pleased to be a part of it. So, and thank you, Hector, for doing such a stupendous job being our MC tonight, the one and only.
Anytime. Always great to spend time with you all. And I would tell you it was exciting, and I got a lot out of just listening to your to how to see things differently. I'm sure my girlfriend is gonna appreciate you more than anything. So,
yeah, it doesn't just stop at your profession, it's your personal life. It can have a huge impact.
Yeah,
there you go.
You gotta look at things differently. So. But no, hey, thank you so much. And so, hey, just as a quick shout out, I do want to thank, as always, the people behind the scenes. So thank you to William and Wakana and John in marketing for putting this on, the online education department. Thank you to Katie for being here. And then also one more time to you, Tom, for putting this on. I know it's a lot of time on your Tuesday night, but I think everybody got a lot out of it. And so it was awesome to see so many students from all over the US and all over the world on here. So as we wrap this up, I will go ahead and just one more time. I can't tell you enough. I will literally be on my email right now. So please, if you get a chance, send me an email. I'd love to just hear from you and get some feedback on the workshop, and then also help you out with any questions. I thank you, Marisol, for sending me an email right now. But please send me an email here if you'd like to start a two-way with me and just talk a little bit about the school or the program. We'll go ahead and set up an appointment. And once again, thanks to everybody. So that's enough out of me. I'm going to sign off and say goodnight. And I'll hang back just for a few minutes to take any questions in the chat. Generally, we